Welcome to Movie Division. Today I am going to recap the action-adventure movie entitled Thor: Love and Thunder. Spoilers ahead. Watch out. The movie opens with Gorr playing to his god, Rapu, for water and sustenance as their planet has been ruined. He has been starving with his daughter, and they are the only ones left of their kind. Gorr asks his daughter to be strong, but suddenly she dies in her father's arms. Gorr gets very sad at his daughter's unfortunate demise, and suddenly a few whispers draw his attention, and when Gorr follows the voices, he finds his god Rapu celebrating. Gorr informs him that he is his last disciple, but Rapu make fun of him when he asks for eternal reward in return for all of his sufferings. Rapu informs him that there is no eternal reward for them, which makes Gorr worried about his daughter, who has recently died. Rapu informs him that there is a way to celebrate the death of the Necro Sword holder's death. Necro Sword is a cursed sword made to kill the gods. When Gorr gets mad at Rapu and renounces him, Rapu attempts to kill him, but the sword raises and comes into Gorr's hand, asking him to seek his revenge and make his way to eternity. Gorr picks up the sword and kills Rapu. The scene shifts to Korg, who tells people about Thor's life story and how he was raised and fell in love with many girls. But his real love is the girl from Earth named Jane Foster. After losing Jane, Thor lost everything, including his friends, father, mother, and brother. Eventually, Thor decides to meditate and wait until someone needs him. One day, Quill approaches him and asks for his help. Thor leaves and joins the Guardians of the Galaxy in the war against the Buxans. The king of Saturn, named Yakan, arrives and informs him that after their gods were butchered. There was no one to look after them, and their temples are empty because the Buxans have attacked them now. Thor gets infuriated and transforms to fight against the Buxans. Thor fights the Buxans' army and defeats them single-handedly. But accidentally, he destroys the temple, which saddens Yakan. Thor gives the credit for their victory to everyone, and the movie proceeds to Jane Foster in a CT scanner. Jane sits next to a man reading her book, and she reveals to him that she is the book's writer and explains to him what is written inside it. After that, Jane is approached by her friend Darcy, and we come to know that Jane is a patient with 4th-stage cancer. Darcy finds Jane in a hurry to return to the lab and suggests that she should spend her time with someone and suggests Thor's name, but Jane denies it. Jane works on her cancer, and her friend's doctor informs him that he cannot help her as the chemo is less effective in her case. Later, Jane gets distracted by the book about space Vikings, from where she learns about Mjolnir, which is responsible for unlimited health and stamina to its owner. In the following scene, we see the new Asgard, where Asgardians live with humans and Valkyrie is seen dealing with affairs with humans. Jane is seen with a group of tourists looking at Mjolnir. But after everyone leaves, Jane stays there, and due to the pieces of Mjolnir start moving, clouds prevail in the sky. Following that, Yakan gives 2 giant goats to Thor in return for his services, and when Thor tries to talk about the temple, Yakan stops him and leaves. The Guardians of the Galaxy get irritated by the giant goats inside their ship, and they attempt to kill them, but Thor stops them. Suddenly, they receive many distress calls mentioning the deaths of many gods killed by the god Butcher. Thor spots his friend Sif calling for help, and when he asks the Guardians to leave once to help his friend, Quill opposes the idea and asks to split. Thor gets sad after listening to this, and he is standing alone when Quill comes to him, asks him to be strong, and gives him hope that he will find someone deserving of his love. Thor informs him that he has been away from everyone as he loses everything he gets attached to, but Quill comforts him. After the Guardians of the Galaxy leave, Thor gets sad and leaves to meet Sif with Korg and his goats. Finally, Thor finds Sif in miserable condition, and she hopes to go to Valhalla as she is dying on the battlefield. But Thor informs him that they can go to Valhalla only after they die during the battle, but she has survived the war. On being asked, Sif informs Thor that the god Butcher led her to a trap. She also reveals that his next target is Asgard, which stuns Thor, as he has vowed to kill all the gods. In the next scene, Gorr arrives at Asgard and sends his shadow monsters to attack Asgard. As the monsters attack, Thor arrives with Korg and fights the monsters with Valkyrie. Suddenly, Thor gets distracted by Mjolnir, who is killing the monsters, and therefore, Thor can grab it. Mjolnir returns, and we see Jane Foster as Mighty Thor. Thor is taken aback to see this and asks her to uncover her face. When Jane uncovers her face, Thor gets confused after seeing her, and Korg narrates their story. He informs us that Thor and Jane, despite being from different worlds, were perfect for each other. But as time passed, they became worried about losing each other, so they created boundaries between themselves, which caused Jane to leave after dropping a letter for Thor, which he read. They thought their legend had ended, but they were again in front of each other. When Thor asks her about how she became like him, Jane insists on talking later about this. Thor then spots Gorr and attacks him. Gorr overpowers Thor, but when Gorr touches Thor's axe, it irritates him, and Thor goes Gorr away. Valkyrie, Thor, and Jane team up against Gorr, and he escapes from there, but Gorr takes away all the children from Asgard. After Gorr and his monsters withdraw, Thor meets Jane, and when he talks about Jane leaving him, Jane makes him realize that both of them left each other. But there is no use in keeping track now. Later, we see Korg, who asks Thor how he feels after seeing his ex hammer with his ex-girlfriend, as they are doing great together. Thor tries to summon Mjolnir, and his axe notices this. After that, all the mothers become concerned for their children, and everyone panics when they gather around Valkyrie and the administration of Asgard. Thor calms everyone and leaves to save the children, but Stormbreaker throws him away for cheating on it. Thor returns to Jane, and Valkyrie discusses where to start looking for the children, and then suddenly Heimdall's son, Axel, appears there, and Thor teleports in ghost form among the children using Axel's powers. Thor asks the kids to stay strong and assures them that he will surely come to save them. Thor looks around and learns that they are in the Shadow Realm, after which he teleports back to Asgard. Thor informs Valkyrie that the children are in Shadow Realm, so they think Gorr must have set a trap for them as he uses shadows as his power, and the Shadow Realm is where he will be the strongest. Valkyrie and Thor decide to go to the Omnipotent City to get the army of the gods to defeat Gorr. On being asked by Jane, Thor informs her that Omnipotent City is where all the great gods, including Zeus, gather. Jane is stunned to hear about meeting with Zeus. They decide to use a boat and Stormbreaker as an engine, as using only Stormbreaker can be dangerous. He is mad at Thor, and they have seen what it has done earlier. Valkyrie provides a boat, and Thor's goat pulls the boat while Stormbreaker makes a bridge to Omnipotent City. Thor then meets Jane and asks her about how she ended up being Mighty Thor, and Jane reveals that one day she listened to Mjolnir calling for her, and when she approached it, its pieces started swirling and make her like him. After that, they continue their journey and ultimately reach Omnipotent City. Valkyrie brings colored disguises for her friends and informs them that each specifies an emotion. Thor and his friends change their disguises and sit in the meeting, where they spot Zeus, who is showing off a lot. Zeus gets distracted while making his speech when Thor keeps abiding Valkyrie and Jane from attacking and stealing the Thunderbolt. As a result, Thor is called on stage by Zeus, and when Thor gets on stage, he reveals everything about Gorr and asks him for an army before he can kill anyone else. Zeus does not take him seriously and calls all the dead gods low-level gods. He also mentions that every god looks after their people and he can't help them. Zeus assures everyone that Gorr is not going to make up for eternity. Valkyrie informs Jane that eternity is a place at the center of the earth, which blesses the wishes of everyone to reach it first, and Gorr will surely wish to kill every god. Thor calls him a coward, and Zeus informs him he is afraid as Gorr has Negrosword, which can kill them, and he can use Thor and his friends to track Omnipotent City, which is why he orders guards to arrest Asgardians. Valkyrie asks for permission and they fight the guards. During this fight, Zeus uses his Thunderbolt and perishes Korg. Thor gets sad over this, and when Zeus throws his Thunderbolt to kill Thor, he catches it and makes a hole in Zeus's chest instead. Thor finds that Korg is still alive and picks up his head. Thor gives Korg's head to Valkyrie and asks him to summon the goats. After a little struggle, Korg succeeds in calling the goats, and when they come, Valkyrie picks up Thunderbolt and they continue their journey to Shadow Realm. Thor looks at Thunderbolt and admires it, due to which Stormbreaker again gets angry, but now Thor approaches it with beer and apologizes for fighting with him. Thor shares his first beer with Stormbreaker, assuring him that it is his only weapon. Valkyrie then sends Jane to talk to Thor, and when she comes next to him and asks about his feelings, Thor reveals that he wants to be with her always, and before she returned to his life, he closed his heart to everyone. Jane gets sad after listening to this and reveals that she has cancer. Thor is shocked to hear this and asks her to live happily. Jane mentions her cancer was why she was approached by Mjolnir, but she doesn't find it helping her. Thor motivates Jane and asks her to believe in herself as she is the one who made him worthy of Mjolnir when he was abandoned. Jane informs him that she wants to save the kids and return home, after which they kiss each other. Suddenly, Valkyrie interferes and reveals that they have arrived in Shadow Realm. The colors vanish as they reach the Shadow Realm and start looking for the kids. The trio splits up, and Jane finds a drawing indicating that Stormbreaker is the key to eternity. She rushes to warn Thor and Valkyrie about the trap and throws the Stormbreaker away. Gorr appears there, and Jane tells Thor that Gorr is looking for Stormbreaker. Gorr captures them and forces Thor to call the axe. Thor refuses. Gorr tells them what the gods have done to them. He tells Valkyrie how his sisterhood and family were allowed to die even after she prayed to the gods. After that, Gorr tells Jane that, unlike her, the sword gave him new life, but the gods will use her and not let her recover as she is dying. Gorr returns to Thor and tells her she believed in Rapu, but he let her daughter die for nothing. Gorr then tortures Jane and forces Thor to call Stormbreaker. Thor, Valkyrie, and Jane fight Gorr and his monster, and during this, Gorr stabs Valkyrie with Thunderbolt. Thor and Jane decide to take away from there, and Thor creates Bifrost back home from using Stormbreaker. Gorr grabs the Stormbreaker and snatches it from Thor. When Thor and his friends return to Asgard, he finds Jane in critical condition. After a while, a doctor informs Thor that Jane has weakened significantly, which has decreased her ability to fight against cancer. Thor gets mad at this and returns to Jane normally. Thor informs her that he has been going to bring back the kids, and Jane insists on accompanying him. Thor asks her to stay there as he loves her a lot, and this is Mjolnir weakening her. He doesn't want to regret the rest of his life for not asking her to have rest, as it is their only chance. Jane agrees and asks Thor to return for her. Thor meets Valkyrie, who gives him the Thunderbolt and asks him to return alive with the kids. The movie proceeds to Gorr, who gets ready to make his way to eternity while the kids keep looking at him. Gorr fixes Stormbreaker into the ground to open the door to eternity, and a statue falls on the kids, but Thor saves them. Gorr notices this and sends his demons to finish them. Thor asks the kids to pick up anything they find and gives his powers to them for a short time. The kids attack demons and kill them brutally using their given powers while Thor fights Gorr. Gorr gains the upper hand and beats Thor when Jane gets the visions and awakens, finding Mjolnir next to her. When Gorr is about to kill Thor, Jane appears there and attacks Gorr. Thor gets sad after seeing Jane, as he knows it's the last time he sees Jane. Jane asks him to get to the Stormbreaker while she keeps Gorr busy. Thor approaches Stormbreaker and tries to free it from the demons holding it. Eventually, Stormbreaker gets rid of the demons and Thor throws it to Axel to take the kids back home. When Gorr is busy fighting Jane, Thor attacks him with Thunderbolt and holds his sword. Meanwhile, Jane throws Mjolnir aiming for the sword, and it destroys the sword into pieces. Gorr gains access to the sword's handle, and when it starts regenerating, Jane absorbs the sword's pieces into Mjolnir. Before the sword can be recovered completely, Jane destroys Mjolnir containing the sword pieces, which results in the complete destruction of Necrosword. As Mjolnir gets destroyed, Jane gets weak and falls. As Thor returns, he notices that Gorr has made his way to eternity, and suddenly Jane and Thor find themselves next to Gorr. Before Gorr can make his wish to destroy all gods, Thor informs him that revenge is not what he has been seeking, but love is his destination. When Thor returns his back to Gorr, it infuriates him, and Thor tells him that he has chosen his love. He will spend his last moments with his love rather than dying talking to him. He also tells Gorr that he can bring his daughter back by his wish and leaves everything to Gorr. Gorr gets sad recalling his daughter and states that she will be alone after him, but Jane replies that she'll not be alone as Thor will take good care of her. Gorr makes his wish, and we see Gorr's daughter approaching him. On the other hand, Jane asks Gorr to keep her heart open after she dies, and tells him how she felt after picking up Mjolnir. Jane then dies in Thor's arms and vanishes for Valhalla. At the same time, Gorr asks Thor to always protect his beloved daughter, and dies in her lap. After that, we listen to Korg narrating how Jane sacrificed herself and taught everyone in the meaning of being worthy. The kids returned to Asgard, and Korg regenerated his body and made a baby with his friend. Finally, Thor found someone to love who changed him from a sad god into a dad god. Thor is seen with Gorr's daughter and loves her as his own daughter. Thor trains her to protect good and fight evil. We are also told that they traveled long distances together, protecting good people and those who know them well. Remember them as Love and Thunder, and the movie ends here. If you enjoyed the recap, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell to get notified when we post the next fascinating recap. It really helps the channel and encourages us to make more quality videos for you. And don't forget to comment down your favorite part of the movie. Thanks for watching.